Hi everybody, I'm Jim. This is Song Tripping. I thought it's time for another random picks video. This is a new series I've started on the channel where I select 5 random items from my Discogs database. So all my albums, CDs, vinyl are in Discogs. I can just click the random item link in the collection view and it'll pick something out. And for this episode, I've got 3 CDs and 2 vinyl records to share with you. Also, I realized now this is about the 3rd one I've done. I want to actually listen to these albums. So I'm going to share my impressions of them, like memories of where I bought them, who I was, where I was at the time I got them, to the extent that I can remember that information, but also impressions on listening to this stuff, because a lot of the stuff that turns up in the random picks is things I haven't listened to in years. So we'll start with this album. It's a great case in point. Nick Drake, 5 Leaves Left. This is a CD. It was originally copyrighted in 1969, came out on Island Records in 1970. This is the CD version, Ryko disc. And here's what the label looks like. This is an album that we got, I want to say in the 90s, maybe late 90s, around 2000-ish. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not exactly sure when this was reissued on CD either. It is Hannibal Records, and I don't immediately see a date when it came out. It's probably in Discogs. I should do my research. Anyway, what a cool album this is. I didn't really listen to Nick Drake or even know who he was back in the day when I was growing up and just getting into music. He was a later discovery for me. My memory is he was being played on stations like WXPN in Philadelphia. Like they would tout him, like he would show up on programs like Sleepy Hollow, which actually continues to this day. It's a weekend morning show on that FM radio station, WXPN, University of Pennsylvania Public Radio Station. And they would play like softer stuff, acoustic, folk, indie folk, jazz, pop, lighter stuff, but kind of moody, get you started on your morning. It was always my favorite show on WXPN. I'm sure that's when I first heard Nick Drake, and they would play that kind of stuff a lot on that show. And we got interested in him, and I'm sure they probably played him like on other like later programs, like later in the day. That's, I'm sure, my first exposure to Nick Drake. And eventually we picked up the album. I know we bought this new. I'm pretty sure we bought it new. Can't remember where we were living at the time. But this music is I haven't listened to this in probably 20 years. I'm embarrassed to say, but it was great to pull it off the shelf and give it another listen. Time Has Told Me, Riverman, one of my favorites on here. 3 Hours, Way to Blue, Day Is Done, Cello Song, The Thoughts of Mary Jane, Man in a Shed, Fruit Tree, and Saturday Sun. Yeah, if you know Nick Drake, very sort of moody, introspective. There's a mystique to his sound, a quietness to his art. And, he kind of like came and went. He sort of disappeared. I guess he died pretty young, right? I'm not sure of his whole biography, but he kind of like flowered briefly. And then I don't think his records amounted to a whole lot at the time. But it's only like in the wake of his passing that his music has truly been appreciated. I think a lot of his stuff has been used in films and TV shows. If not, it should be. But songs like Riverman, I'm pretty sure another tie-in here is Brad Mehldau, the jazz pianist. He covered some Nick Drake songs. I think he did Riverman, maybe some other stuff by Nick, but gave it like some really interesting interpretations on jazz piano. But this was so enjoyable to get into. I got very mesmerized and absorbed in the music. So hopefully I'll be listening to some more Nick Drake really soon. Another CD that came on the random picks was the, this is a 1980s version. Let me check the date. I don't have the date, but I'm sure it's like a 1986 or maybe version of Lamb Lies Down on Broadway in this sort of fat boy jewel case. Not my favorite packaging, and the hinges are all broken on this. But here's what the label looks like for the. I don't know if people can see that with the reflection. Atco and made in USA pressing. Comes with a booklet. This was another really absorbing listening. I listened to it on the second floor stereo system with the Marantz 1040 amp and the Pioneer bookshelf speakers, and I was also mesmerized by this. And made me want to compare this to my definitive edition remaster. Maybe if I haven't done one already, I don't think I've done a shootout of Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. I do have those 2 CD versions to compare in addition to the vinyl. But yeah, I mean, disc 1 is really, I think, the strongest of the 2 discs. This would be equivalent of side 1 and side 2 on the vinyl. It's pretty much consistently great all the way through. Then you get to disc 2, which would be sides 3 and 4, and things get a lot of more like kind of trippy and psychedelic and ambient and experimental. But you know, oftentimes when I would listen to Lamb, I would sort of drift off like on side 3. But listening more closely these days, like I've come to really appreciate side 3 and side 4. Side 4 kind of picks it up and you kind of like bring it to a conclusion. But, you know, arguably Genesis' best album. I mean, it's up there, certainly in my top 5, probably my top 3 of best Genesis albums. Like, it's just fully realized. It's weird, you know, the Peter Gabriel story that frames this whole sequence of songs is this very trippy sort of sci-fi story, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because they kind of connect it all. The segues between songs are just wonderful. You're really listening to a work of art when you're listening to Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. So yeah, I enjoyed that listen. And I think this is a nice CD version, maybe one to look for. Let's just continue now with CDs. The third CD in the random picks that came up is a Windham Hill Records Sampler 86, selection from the Windham Hill Records album catalog. This is what it looks like. Windham Hill, New Age label. And this I listened to on the sort of basement stereo system, like down here in the basement, which is, I forget what this amp is. It's some amp I picked up at like thrift store. I think it's the Onkayo. And the old, my very original Panasonic thruster speakers are still here in the basement. So this is like the third best system in the house. But every now and then I like to, you know, work down here and I listen to albums. And you know, it sounded really nice, the CD. It's the old thrusters are still holding up. But anyway, it's not my favorite Windham Hills sampler because by this point, and this came out in 1986, so the artists who are being like compiled here, their records came from 84, 85, and 86. So you're getting into mid-80s Windham Hill now. And the artists included, I should give them credit, Philip Auberg, I think he just passed away recently, Daryl Anger, Barbara Higbee Quintet, Scott Kolstu with Eugene Friesen, Malcolm Dalgish, Interior, Mark Isham, Michael Manning, Mike Marshall, and Daryl Anger, Shadowfax, Ira Stein, and Russell Walter, and Liz Story. So a lot of like from the stable of Windham Hill, some familiar names popping up there. But my overall impression of this is as good as it sounded. It had great dynamics, good clarity, very full sound. This is getting into like the Windham Hill era where I start to lose a little interest in this New Age label. Like my preferred Windham Hill era would be like late 70s into the early 80s. And then you get to mid to late 80s. They're still putting out really cool stuff, that good sounding stuff, but the sound here is, it's a lot of like kind of synthy textures, a little more synthetic, a little more electronic instruments, and a little less acoustic bass, although there's plenty of acoustic stuff on here too. But yeah, so it was listenable. It's a nice compilation. It's a good time capsule. But it's getting into not my favorite era of Windham Hill. I guess I'll put it that way. Don't remember where I got this. I can't help you out there. Okay, 2 more records on the random picks for this time, and these are vinyl. This is a Spinners album. Happiness is Being with the Spinners. This is 1976 on the Atlantic label. Show you the label. And the big hit off this album is Rubber Band Man. And I'm sure that's why I bought the album. I do have a price sticker on this. I got it for $1.98. Don't remember where I got this. It was a used record store somewhere in the lower 48 of the United States. But probably about 20 years ago, I'm going to guess this when I got this. I like the Spinners a lot. Like, this is classic Philly soul. It's produced by Tom Bell. It was recorded at Sigma Sound Studios in Philadelphia. A lot of the songs are arranged, conducted, and produced by Tom Bell. Tom Bell has some songwriting credits on here. And the Rubber Band Man, to me, is the highlight. I have a very vivid memory of watching the Spinners perform this, I should say, lip sync it. I think it was either on American Bandstand or Soul Train, one of those television shows. And I just sort of fell in love with the song. And you heard it on the radio a lot. Coming from the Philly area, I like good Philly soul. You know, it's kind of in my bones. And this is a nice sounding pressing for a used copy for a $2 record. It punches above that weight class. And it's just thoroughly enjoyable. You know, I liked all the other tracks too. It was really listenable. I listened to it in the headphones, and I listened to it on the Marantz CD60 and the Marantz Model 50 amp through my Grado headphones. Nice listen. Definitely a keeper for the time being. I don't really want to get rid of it. And then last but certainly not least is Jackson Browne, Running on Empty. This came up on the random picks. This is a live album, and it's from 1977. This was my very first Jackson Browne album. Running on Empty got a ton of FM radio play in my area. The song Running on Empty, and they used to play The Loadout like all the time on the classic rock stations back in the day. I used to love that song every time it came up with it. So some of the finest, like, simple piano playing on a rock album. It's very heartfelt. It's a really cool live album too. And in fact, not only is it like a favorite Jackson Browne album for me, it wasn't the first one I got, and for a long time it was the only Jackson Browne album I had. But it's one of my favorite live albums. It's a live album, but it's a different kind of live album. It's a concept live album, so it's very much an album about life on the road as a performing musician. So all the songs thematically relate that way. All the songs were recorded live, were mostly live. A lot of them are, you know, sort of soundboard recordings from different shows. We have you know, for instance, Running on Empty was recorded in Columbia, Maryland on August 27th, 1977. But then some of the stuff is like recorded in hotel rooms or on a tour bus and has a much more intimate sound to it. And they just put a lot of thought into the construction of this album. So it doesn't just feel like your typical live album where it's like, okay, we'll just record some shows and we'll pick the best cuts and kind of toss it out there because we're not ready to make a studio album. This has, you know, and I think there were actually some songs here that he wrote for this album. We have Running on Empty, The Road, Rosie, You Love the Thunder, Cocaine, which is a cover, Shaky Town, Love Needs a Heart, Nothing But Time, The Loadout, and Stay. You have the Crackerjack Band of Jackson Browne on guitar and piano. You've got David Lindley, who sounds phenomenal on the fiddle and lap steel. Russell Kunkel on drums, Leland Sklar on bass, Craig Dollarge on keyboards, Danny Korchmar on guitars, Doug Haywood and Rosemary Butler, the background singers. Produced by Jackson Browne, engineered by Greg Ladani, and very well engineered. This is just another reason it's one of my favorite live albums is it's one of the best sounding live albums. It's very well produced. Even this old copy, here's your inner sleeve with the lyrics. Even this old copy sounds phenomenal. I love it. And it comes also with this insert, so you get kind of like a photo album of the tour. This was my introduction to Jackson Browne. You know, I have nothing but good things to say about Running on Empty. You know, I've been acquiring the reissues of Jackson Browne's back catalog on vinyl. These are, I think, remastered. So I have like Late for the Sky and Saturate Before Using and For Every Man, so on. They reissued this, but I almost don't feel like I need to get the reissue because this copy sounds so good. Yeah, I'll just leave it there. So those are my 5 random picks. What are your thoughts on these albums? We got Windham Hill Record sampler from '86. Lamb Lies Down on Broadway on CD for the 1980s, US pressing. 5 Leaves Left, Nick Drake, early 70s. Jackson Browne, and some classic Philly soul from the Spinners. What do you think? Always welcome to comment. Thanks for watching. I'll be back again soon, hopefully with another random picks video, among other things. Bye-bye.